Hey again, this is part 2 of creating the game's UI. In this one, we're going to make a main menu, as well as a simple loose screen for when the player finally falls down to 0 health. So first of all, let's create the main menu. I'll head over to my scenes folder and create a new scene called main menu. I'll then double click on it to open it up. Between videos, Noah created some art for the main menu, notably this design featuring the player and a couple hazards with the game's title, Raining Apocalypse. He also made a play button and this game over text that reads Frozen. We recommend you have fun creating some designs for the main menu yourself, but if you didn't feel like it, you can of course just download the assets via GitHub. So I'll start by changing the camera to some light brown color. Then I'll create a new UI canvas. Like we did in the previous video, we'll set the canvas scale component to scale with screen size, and then in my case I'll type out 300 for the width and 200 for the height, since that matches up with my game's aspect ratio. Now I'll create a UI image and simply drag and drop inside of that empty slot in the inspector the main menu image. I'll now snap it to the center of the screen and move it up a little bit. This way I can create another UI image which I'll call play button, and I'll drag and drop my play button image inside of that empty slot and snap it to the bottom center of my screen. I'll then also move it up a little bit. With my play image selected, I'll add a new component to it, a button component. This will let the player click on the play image with his mouse cursor, and when he does so, we can call a certain function. In this case, we'll call a function that brings our player to the game scene. So I'll create a new C# script called Scene Manager, and then I'll open it up inside of Visual Studio. In it, I'll make one public function called playGame. It's very important that you type the public keywords this time, or the button won't be able to call this function. And so inside of this function, we want to type in some code that will actually bring us to the game area. To do so, I need to add a new namespace. So using UnityEngine.SceneManagement. Thanks to this line, we can now transition to different scenes or reload our current scene. I'll now type scenemanager.loadScene, and between the parentheses, I'll type out between quotation marks the exact name of the scene we wish to transition to. So in my case, we called it Game. And that's it. Now head over back to Unity and add my Scene Manager script to the play button. And inside the button component, you'll see this on-click event box. I can click on the small plus sign to add an event. I'll now left click on my main menu script and drag it inside of this empty slot. This way I can call a function from that script. Now we will go inside of this drop down, find the Scene Manager script, and then we will choose the play game function. Just before testing this out, I'm going to head over to File, Build Settings. There I'll need to make sure that my scenes, so the main menu and the game scene, are both stored in build space. If they're not, simply left click on them and drag and drop them inside of that space. Now I'll test this out. Hit the play button and as expected, the game scene loads up and we can play the game. Awesome. Note that you can make this button a lot more exciting by tweaking a few of the settings inside of the button components. For example, these colors. The highlighted color indicates what color tint our play button will have when the mouse cursor hovers over it. And the press color is the tint it will take when we left click on it. So definitely play around with these. It will make your buttons feel more interesting and responsive. With that done, let's move on to the loose screen. I'll head over to the game scene and create a new UI panel which I'll call Loose Panel. I'll snap it to the center, scale it up a little bit so it fits the entire screen, and change its color to a light blue with some transparency. Then I'll create a UI image and drag and drop the frozen text inside of that empty slot. And then I'll snap it to the center. Make sure that the frozen image is lower in the hierarchy than the panel. This way it renders in front of that panel and not behind it. I'll actually just parent the frozen image to the loose panel in this case. Whereas with sprites we tweak the order and layer setting on the sprite renderer components to get them rendering in front or behind other sprites, with UI we'll be working with the hierarchy. If I head back to the main menu scene, make sure that the play button is well in front of the main menu image. If not, and if the main menu image is in front of the play button in the scene as well, then the play button won't detect the mouse cursor and as a result won't call the play game function when we click on it. Anyway, back to the game scene. I'll double click on the player script and create a public game object variable called lose screen. And then when the player reaches 0 health, I'll enable the lose screen by typing losescreen.setActive, and inside the parentheses, we'll type in the boolean true. Now I can select the lose panel and click on this small box to disable it. And then I'll drag and drop it inside of the player script. This way when we hit play, there's no lose panel because it's disabled, but as soon as we fall down to 0 health, it will appear, clearly telling the player that he has lost and must restart. Now talking about restarting, let's do that right now. I'll add a button component to the frozen text as well as my scene manager script. Add a onClick event to the button, drag and drop the scene manager script there, and call the play game function. This way I can simply click on that to restart my game because remember, the play game function loads out the game scene. And there we go, we finished with the UI for this project. Well done. We're so close to completing the game and sharing it with the rest of the world. There's one more thing that still needs to be done, and that is adding sounds. That's exactly what you'll be doing with Noah in the next video, so best of luck. Cheers!